My girlfriend and I met in the most unusual and unfortunate way. Her husband tragically lost his life during the devastating Hurricane Katrina, and their home was completely washed away by the relentless force of nature. The news was filled with heart-wrenching stories about the victims, and my heart went out to them. Little did I know that fate had something unexpected in store for me. On Sunday, I attended church as usual, and to my surprise, our church had become a shelter for numerous families who were displaced by the hurricane. The pastor urgently sought volunteers to take these families into their homes temporarily until they could get back to their feet. At first, I never thought I would be willing to open my home to strangers. But as the pastor spoke, he pointed out that many of us were rarely home due to work commitments, leaving our houses empty most of the time. This struck a chord with me because I had just landed a high-paying job as a physician assistant, which kept me working long hours, sometimes spending days away from home. Reflecting on my situation, I realized I had recently purchased a spacious 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house. With my hectic work schedule, it seemed logical to help those in need by allowing a couple of people to stay with me for a few months. In my mind, they would occupy the empty space while I continued my demanding job, and I wouldn't even notice their presence. Besides, I believed that the universe will reward me for my good deeds. Perhaps this act of kindness would lead to positive outcome in my own life. At that time, I was a 29-year-old single man who had faced challenges in the dating world. I had tried dating, but it seemed like the women I desired didn't reciprocate, and those I managed to connect with turned out to be incompatible in some way. So I decided to embrace the solitude until the right person come along. With newfound resolve, I stepped forward and volunteered to provide shelter for a family in need. When I expressed my willingness to volunteer and take in a family, my pastor introduced me to a 28-year-old beautiful widow who had tragically lost her husband during Hurricane Katrina. She had 2 daughters, aged 5 and 7, and their heartbreaking story touched my heart deeply. After meeting her, I felt an instant connection. She seemed genuine, kind, and easy to get along with. I knew I had made the right decision. She and her children quickly moved into my home, and I made sure they felt comfortable by purchasing new furniture, electronics, and groceries. In the first few days after they moved in, I was busy with work and almost forgot that I had people living in my house. But on the morning after I returned from a work trip, I was pleasantly surprised when she knocked on my bedroom door with the aroma of freshly cooked breakfast filling the air. She brought in a tray of eggs, fried bacon, and fresh coffee, and her warm smile melted my irritation I had for being woken up. Breakfast in bed was a rare treat that I hadn't experienced since childhood, but now it became a common occurrence thanks to her caring nature. She treated me like a king, going above and beyond to make sure I was well taken care of, even tying my laces before I headed out for work. Her children were incredibly well behaved and respectful, addressing me as yes sir with reverence. They soon started calling me dad, and I wasn't sure how I felt about that. I have fallen in love with them and hope to adopt them in the future. In addition to taking care of me, she also diligently cleaned the house every morning and prepared delicious breakfast and lunch using the money I provided for groceries. Soon after settling, she managed to find a job, which was a sign of her determination to stand on her own feet again. As weeks turned into months, she became more than just a guest in my house. She felt like family. We developed a deep bond, and I realized I had grown quite fond of her and her children. Despite knowing her job meant that she wouldn't stay with me forever, I couldn't help but wish for her to stay a little longer. Time flew by, and her presence had become an integral part of my life. Our home felt warmer and more complete with her and her children around. Yet, I knew that eventually she would be able to regain her independence and find a place of her own. While I wanted her to succeed and be happy, I couldn't deny the bittersweet feeling that welled up inside me at the thought of her leaving. As our relationship grew more intimate, I couldn't deny the strong attraction and connection between us. We would intentionally brush against each other while moving around the house, and the tension between us was palpable. Simple moments like her cooking in the kitchen while I stood behind her, engaged in conversation, left me longing for more. One night, while we were watching a late night show together, laughter filled the air, and she leaned in, resting her head against my shoulder. In that intimate moment, our feeling took over, and we found ourselves sharing a passionate kiss that led to more on the couch. After that night, she became more than just a woman taking shelter under my roof. Our physical intimacy deepened, and I cherished the time we spent together. However, she continued to reside in the guest room, perhaps unsure of where our relationship was heading. Despite our closeness, she had her reservation, and I respected her boundaries. 3 months passed as she secured a job as a cashier at a local grocery store, which was a significant step towards her independence. Still, I willingly took care of the financial aspect, covering all the expenses, while she used her earnings to provide for her children's daycare and clothing needs. It felt like a partnership built on love and understanding, and I was more than willing to support her as she rebuilt her life. As Christmas approached, I invited her and her children to spend the holiday with my family. I introduced her as my girlfriend, and to my relief, my mother welcomed her warmly. She was fond of her and her kids, but during a private moment, my mother shared her concern with me. She reminded me of her children from a previous marriage and advised me to consider finding a partner without such responsibilities. Her words caused me to reflect on our relationship and the challenges that lay ahead. It was true, this relationship was different from anything I had experienced before. It wasn't just about us, but also about embracing her children as part of my life. Despite my mother's words of caution, I couldn't ignore the strong bond we share and the love I felt for both her and her kids. As I spoke with my mother about my girlfriend and her children, I understood that her concerns came from a place of love and wanting what she believed was best for me. I assured her that I appreciated her care and advice, but I couldn't ignore the love I had found with this incredible woman and her children. I reminded her that her desire for me to be in a relationship was finally fulfilled, and now she's concerned about the baggage that came along with it. For me, however, my girlfriend was everything I could have ever wished for. She was the same loving and kind person I met 4 months ago, and she didn't have any major issues or addictions. She was a responsible and caring mother of her children, and I couldn't ask for more. Her beauty, both inside and out, still captivated me, and I found myself falling deeper in love with her with each passing day. Her presence in my life brought a sense of positivity and rejuvenation, especially when I returned home after my work trip. I looked forward to being around her and her children, and it felt like I was living a dream. The bond we shared was something special, and I couldn't imagine my life without her. Despite the intimacy we shared almost every day when I was home, she continued to sleep in the guest room. One night, I finally gathered the courage to ask her why she hesitated to share my bed overnight. Her response took me by surprise, and I felt a pang of guilt for bringing it up. She tearfully explained that she had never spent the night in another man's bed since her late husband passed away. It was a tender and painful memory for her, and I regretted having touched that sensitive nerve. I held her close, offering comfort and understanding. I knew that she needed time and patience to heal from the wound of her past, and I was more than willing to give her the space she needed. One evening, as I returned home from work, a nagging suspicion resurfaced. I noticed once again that my beloved cashew nuts and malts from the refrigerator had been consumed. The realization troubled me deeply because I knew my girlfriend and her children didn't have a liking to them. My girlfriend had even mentioned her aversion to cashew nuts and malts due to their high calorie content, so I was certain it wasn't her. Not wanting to make a big fuss about it, I resisted the urge to interrogate her. Instead, I playfully questioned her 7-year-old daughter, as I often did during our fun interaction. To my surprise, she mentioned a name I had never heard before, accusing that person of being the culprit behind the disappearing snacks. Initially, I took it as one of our light-hearted banter sessions, but her serious tone and the way she provided intricate details left me taken aback. According to her, this person would visit my house whenever I was away for work and even stay overnight with my girlfriend, her mother. She expressed her dislike for him, and I felt a wave of shock wash over me. The implication of her words were startling, and it was something I had never even considered. The thoughts of my girlfriend being unfaithful was beyond anything I could have imagined. I trusted her completely, and the idea of her cheating on me seemed like an impossibility. I grappled with a mixture of emotion, and from disbelief to anger to headache, as the truth began to unravel before my eyes. I couldn't help but feel a surge of pain and anger. I believed the words of her daughter, and the need for concrete evidence pushed me to take drastic action, setting up hidden cameras on the front porch and living room. I hoped to see the reality of what was happening behind my back. When I left for work for those 3 days, I left the cameras recording, anxious to uncover the truth. Upon my return, I braced myself for the heartbreaking revelation that awaited me. As I watched the footage, my worst fears were confirmed. There was a man visiting my house during my absence, spending the night with my girlfriend. My precious cashew nuts and malts were consumed by him, and he behaved as if he owned the place, sitting in my chair as though he belonged. The sight of this man taking my place in my home filled me with an overwhelming sense of rage and betrayal. It was a hard pill to swallow, realizing that my girlfriend had deceived me after everything I had done for her. My heart shattered into pieces, and I felt foolish for trusting her so completely. In the aftermath of the discovery, I couldn't bring myself to confront her immediately. The pain and the devastation I felt were too raw. I needed time to process the betrayal and come to terms with the harsh reality. I struggled to understand why she would choose to hurt me in this way, knowing how much I had invested emotionally and physically in our relationship. The days that followed were filled with emotional turmoil and soul-searching. I found it difficult to fathom the person she had become and why she had chosen to betray the love we shared. My mind replayed our time together, trying to pinpoint any signs of her infidelity, but it only left me feeling more confused and hurt, feeling delusioned and jaded towards women. I had mentally withdrawn from the relationship when I finally gathered the courage to confront her about the hidden camera footage. Emotions ran high. I called her into my room and showed her the incriminating video. Tears streamed down her face, and she pleaded with me, admitting she didn't want me to find out this way. In a flood of emotion, I demanded to know who the man in the video was. She claimed he was her ex-boyfriend from New Orleans, someone who had also escaped the flood and was staying at a halfway house. My confusion deepened as she revealed that he would come to my home when I was away. I was taken aback because she had previously told me that she had never spent the night with another man other than her late husband. It was now evident that her statement was nothing more than a lie. The revelation that her husband never existed shattered another truth I had held dear. As she continued to confess, it came to light that she had become pregnant at a young age, and the father of her children had abandoned them. I questioned her about why she lied about her husband's passing, and her response shocked me to the core. She admitted that she had noticed that people sympathized with her when she shared her fictional story of her husband's death. At that moment, I felt lost and confused, realizing that I don't truly know the woman I had led into my life and my home. The sense of betrayal was overwhelming, and fear gripped me as I questioned everything about her and our relationship. With my trust shattered, I made the difficult decision to ask her to leave my house. That very night, I could no longer feel safe and secure with someone who had woven such intricate web of deception. The person I thought I knew had turned out to be a stranger, and it left me feeling vulnerable and cautious about opening my heart to anyone else in the future. The revelation about her deceit left me torn between my emotions and my responsibility toward her 2 daughters. Though I wanted to kick her out that very night, I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her children homeless. My heart ached for them, and I couldn't turn my back on innocent lives caught in the web of her deception. Resolving to protect the children, I told her that she needed to leave my house the following day. However, I couldn't simply abandon them without a place to go. Instead, I decided to rent an extended stay for 1 month to provide them with temporary shelter and stability. The next day, as we moved her belongings, I rented a hotel for $1,240, ensuring that they had a safe place to stay for the upcoming month. It was a gesture born of compassion for her daughters, rather than any lingering affection for her. If it had been solely about her, I would have sent her away that very night without hesitation. Watching them go was heart-wrenching, as I had grown attached to her daughters and had come to see them as my own. They were innocent victims in this situation, and I couldn't bear the thought of them suffering for their mother's manipulation. It was a difficult decision, but I thought it was the right one. Reflecting on the situation, I couldn't help but wonder if her feelings for me had been genuine or part of her elaborate web of lies. The uncertainty weighed on me, but I found solace in the fact that I had discovered the truth before things went any further. The possibility of having a child with someone who had deceived me was a frightening thought, and I thank God for the revelation that spared me from the potential outcome. As I move forward, I resolved to be more cautious in my relationships, ensuring that I perform my due diligence to ensure that honesty and transparency were at the forefront. The experience left me with mixed emotions, but it also served as a valuable lesson about the importance of protecting my heart and making decisions based on truth and authenticity. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. Please support this channel by subscribing. Share your opinion on the comment section. Thank you and